All right. Good morning and welcome to the 8:30 a.m. meeting of the Tulsa Municipal Airports Trust, and subsequent to this meeting, the meeting of the members of Tulsa Airport Authority and the trustees of the Tulsa Airport Improvement Trust. Please remember, in addition to the video conference link on our public notice, once the meeting is uploaded, you can view this meeting on the Tulsa Airport's YouTube page. To ensure our viewers from remote locations can see and hear our presenters and our trustees, we ask that all guests joining by video conference link, please turn off their cameras and mute your microphones. For the trustees and presenting guests, please remember to mute your microphone on your computer or your phone when you are not speaking. Participants are asked not to put this meeting on hold. As we move through each item, we will ask the presenters to speak. Trustees, please hold your questions until the end of each presentation. At the end of each presentation, the chair will call for discussion and motion. If necessary, trustees with questions may then proceed. If a trustee needs to leave the meeting at any time, please verbally announce your intention to do so prior to leaving the meeting. If during this meeting our audio is lost or compromised, we will attempt to restore communications for a maximum of 30 minutes. If we are unable to restore communications, the meeting will reconvene today, May 14th at 4 p.m., the small conference room, Suite A211, 7777 Airport Drive, Tulsa, Oklahoma. In the event the meeting is reconvened, you may access the reconvened meeting virtually by using the link and phone numbers provided on the official meeting notice. Jeff?
Thank you very much, Jeff. At this moment, I'd like to call to order the Tulsa Municipal Airport Trust meeting for Thursday, May 14th. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes from the April 9th regular meeting of TMAT?
So moved.
This is Joe. I second.
Seconded by Joe. All those in favor say aye.
We're going to roll call. Let's roll call. Yeah. Sorry. I'm sorry. Roll call. Kent Harrell.
Aye.
Mary Smith Crofts.
Aye.
Joe Robson.
Aye.
Motion passes.
This is GT. I also vote aye.
I'm sorry, I didn't know you were here. Thank you.
Okay, number 3.
Number 3 is to approve the 17th Amendment to the sublease agreement between Tulsa Municipal Airports Trust and American Airlines. The 17th Amendment extends the term for 1 year, and this 1-year extension will allow the markets to stabilize, hopefully, for the future financing that is planned this year. You ready?
This is Joe Robson. I would make a motion to approve number 3.
This is Mary Smith Crofts. I move to a second.
Any discussion or comment? Please call the roll.
Kent Harrell.
Aye.
Kent Harrell votes aye. Mary Smith Crofts. Mary Smith Crofts.
Aye.
Joe Robson.
Aye.
Joe Robson votes aye. Mayor Bynum.
Aye.
Bynum votes aye. Motion passes.
Okay, number 4.
Number 4 is to approve the signature authority of TMAT Secretary Jeff Shaw, me, to sign checks on behalf of TMAT. This is purely an efficiency issue. Our CM holds the checks, and I get the invoices, and sometimes it takes a month and a half to get our bills paid, and that's what it's for.
Are there any questions or comments? Discussion? Do I have a motion?
This is Joe Robson. I'd move approval of number 4.
Kent Harrell, I'll second the motion.
Thank you.
Will you please call the roll?
Kent Harrell.
Aye.
Harrell votes aye. Mary Smith Cross.
Aye.
Mary Smith Cross votes aye. Joe Robson.
Aye.
Joe Robson votes aye. Mayor Bynum.
Aye.
Mayor Bynum votes aye. Motion passes.
Do I have a motion for adjournment?
Joe Robson moves to adjourn.
Do I have a second?
This is GT, second.
Please call the roll.
Kent Harrell.
Aye.
Kent Harrell votes aye. Mary Smith Cross. Mary Smith Cross. Aye.
Okay, I think I'm back. Aye.
Aye. Okay, good. Joe Robson.
Aye.
Joe Robson votes aye. Mayor Bynum.
Aye.
Mayor Bynum also votes aye. Motion to adjourn is approved.
We are adjourned. Now I'd like to call to order the combined meeting of the Tulsa Airport Improvement Trust special meeting and the Tulsa Airport Authority regular meeting for May 14th, 8:30 a.m. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes from our combined meetings of April 9th, 2020 meeting of both TAIT and TAA?
This is Mary Smith Crofts. I move to approve the minutes.
Joe Robson, I second.
Please call the roll.
Kent Harrell
Aye.
votes aye. Mary Smith Crofts.
Aye.
Mary Smith Croft votes aye. Joe Robson.
Aye.
Joe Robson votes aye. Mayor Bynum.
Aye.
Mayor Bynum also votes aye. Motion passes.
Okay, the financial operating report. First up, our Chief Executive Officer, Alexis.
Yeah, so good morning, everybody. I hope you can hear me. I just wanted to start off the meeting by kind of recapping where we're at. Of course, April was the slowest month on record in the history of the airport. Really, this has been experienced across the nation. Our passenger activity was down approximately 96%. I think the third week in April was our slowest week, and ever since then, we've started to see a slow, gradual uptick. Just to give you some idea, our team is monitoring activity, and as activity starts to pick up, we're going to start making adjustments to the number of people that are in the building. So right now we have one restaurant open post security. We have 2 shops open post security, and we think that's sufficient to meet the demand of our travelers today. Once we start seeing closer to maybe around 9,000 people a week in the terminal, then we'll look at opening maybe 1 or 2 additional locations. And, we're building up to whatever the new level of activity is going to be. And we really don't know what that looks like in the future. We have used this kind of slower time in our operation, though, to take advantage of the lower activity and do some maintenance and repair work. We've restriped the first level of the parking garage and cleaned it up. They're working on the second level now, and then we'll be doing the third level even, just touching up the paint there. The work in Schwab Hall is continuing, and in fact, because of the reduced traffic, it's less obtrusive to, we don't even have employees in the area right now, so the construction workers are able to move in and out easily, make as much noise as they want really, and it's not offensive to anyone. We've asked them to look at accelerating that as much as possible, but they've really taken that on their own. And when you come out to the airport the next time, you'll be able to see we're really close to having the new restrooms complete. They're working on the skylight right now that's going to run through the center of Schwab Hall. And by the end of this month, they're going to be working on moving the mural to the new location in the B baggage claim. We also have some behind the scenes work. Our maintenance team for the outbound baggage conveyor system has replaced one of the drive chains of that system. That's something that we're looking to do to improve the reliability of it. So when traffic does pick up, that system runs continuously without any faults. And then today on the agenda, we have an item for your approval that will allow us to go out on our economy parking lot and basically put an overlay of that pavement, which is something that we haven't done in 20 years. It's maintenance that's much needed. And so you know, even though this has been a struggle for us in terms of, you know, we're here to serve our customers and there haven't been many customers. I just wanted you guys to know that we are taking steps today to ensure that when traffic comes, we're as ready as we can be for them. Fabio's going to go over with you our draft budget for fiscal year 21. Um, our entire leadership team worked on the budget, looking at each of their individual divisions to figure out where they can make cuts. And I want to say, to combine with operating expenses and operating capital, they were able to reduce the budget by 13%, which is a $4 million drop over last year. We did meet with our airlines earlier this week. We had an airline affairs meeting just to go over the budget. The airlines are very interested in what we're doing, specifically with our CARES Act funding, but also just in general. What are our capital plans? What are we doing to possibly delay those capital plans? And I think overall they were very pleased with the steps that we are taking. We really don't know what the future holds. And so we're relying on our industry associations to provide us some guidance. The rating agencies are putting out guidance based on their data. We're looking at airline schedules as they become available. You know, we can look at capacity, but that doesn't tell us what demand is going to be. But as we get that information, we're using that to help with our forecast. And we feel that the budget that's going to be presented today is a reasonable budget. It's attainable for us, but at the same time, I just want you to know, we are going to be monitoring this budget year like no other. And as we look at activity as it comes in, we will make adjustments. And so while we're optimistic that things are going to return to normal, probably by the fourth quarter, not normal, but a new normal, I just want you all to know as our board that we're watching it, and then we'll bring amendments to you if and when those are needed. Before Fabio goes into the budget, I also wanted to take a moment here to recognize some of our employees. So earlier this year, I would say it was late March, when we knew that our activity was decreasing and that this pandemic was going to be a longer term issue for us to deal with. One of the things that we did is we went out and asked our employees if they would be interested in taking an early retirement. We have 37 employees that are retirement eligible today. We had 10 employees decide, you know what, they have enjoyed their time, but now is the right time for them to go ahead and retire. And I say early retirement, they were all retirement eligible. The average tenure of these employees was 23 years. Many of them started working at the city of Tulsa and then transferred to the airport prior to our separation from the city. And if you'll just indulge me, I wanted to just name them off individually. Robert Kinney is an airport police officer. He's been with us 5 years, but he was a Tulsa police officer for 25 years. Mark Soltero, who is an engineer, who's been with us for 15 years. Robin Sividon, a building engineer, 18 years. Richard Yurton is a building services contract inspector for 20 years, and his partner in crime, Gerald Hewitt, also a building services contract inspector, has been here 20 years. Sakan Rath, a vehicle maintenance fleet technician, has 26 years of service. Lisa Martin, who's my executive assistant and has been the executive assistant for CEOs for over 20 years. She's been at the airport 23 years and was with the fire department as an admin prior to that. Ethelyn Harbin, our receptionist and office administrator, has been here 33 years, 13 of those at the airport, 20 of those with the city of Tulsa. Mark Gardner, a storekeeper in our asset management division for 35 years, 13 of those at the airport, 22 of those with the city of Tulsa as an equipment management storekeeper. Chester Cross, who is a building engineer, has been with us for 35 years. and he's had various roles in maintenance, gates and conveyors, and then as a building engineer. So I am extremely grateful. Our entire leadership team is extremely grateful to these 10 people for their service to the airport and to our community. We're a little sad because we're not going to be able to celebrate with them and the big send off that we typically get to do with our employees, but we will be recognizing them individually as we can before they officially depart. I just want to say thank you, and I know our entire leadership team and board joins me in thanking them for their service. And I definitely want to wish them well officially in this meeting as they embark on this new adventure. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Fabio.
Good morning. Can everybody hear me well?
Yes.
Can everybody hear? Great. Okay. Today I'll be presenting the March 2019 versus 2020 activity for TUL and RVS. As Alexis mentioned earlier, the impact of the pandemic, we start to feel it in mid-March and the full effects in April. So we had some momentum from our previous months without the pandemic affecting the airport at the early parts of March. So if you look at the revenue, our revenue is actually down about 16%, coming in just under $3 million for March, but our fiscal year to date activity with the momentum we carried into the early part of the fiscal year, we're up about 12%. Our expenses, managing those down at about 6% down for month-to-month comparative, up slightly for the fiscal year to date. We were doing a little more deferred maintenance items in fiscal 20 that we hadn't gotten to in previous fiscal years. Our net operating income, 23% ahead of the game, and the actual is down about 27%, about $450,000 due to the reduction in revenue activity. The next lines, those are the revenue share and true up that we experienced in fiscal 19 with the airline use and lease agreement. We have restructured that agreement, and it's based on number of days of cash on hand, which we'll discuss in a few minutes. Our revenues for our beverage and retail both down 54 and 47% respectively in the month. 2% down and 1% down fiscal year to date. Parking activity, we did experience a significant decrease, about 48% in tickets pulled, and that put us at just negative 6% fiscal year to date. Revenue is down 5% in fiscal year comparative, and our ground transportation, which is strictly activity-based revenue for the most part, was down about 40% for the month. However, we're still about 108% or about $150,000 ahead of where we were prior year. And that has to do with the duration of the rate increase that took effect January 2019, where we moved providers to $2 a turn, as well as signed on a shuttle service providers. Transaction days for rent-a-car, flat fiscal year to date, but they did see a significant dip as the trend shows, 34% down for month over month. And RVS operations were down 22% due to social distancing and schools closing. The activity, however, is up 4% when you compare the fiscal year over the fiscal year. Fuel flows are down. At RVS, we've seen this steady tick of downward fuel flows, and it has to do with a lot of it with Laredo eliminating their flight department. We've never replaced that corporate segment in our operations at RVS, so we're carrying a 29 down, 11% down for the fiscal year. Our in-plane passengers, 55% decrease for March, 7% down for the year. We're about 72,000 less passengers fiscal year to date than prior fiscal year to date. And our in-plane cargo following that same downward trend, 2% down fiscal year to date and 16% down for the monthly comparative. The next slide is our total in-plane passenger slide. And this just shows our activity levels where the summer months are our busiest months, coming off our slower months, January, February, and we're about half of the activity we've had in the last 2 prior fiscal years of inflamed activity when we compare March. The next slide is our budget to actual, comparing fiscal year to date through March. We are still ahead of budget. We've carried some significant momentum into March. We were up about 4.5% last month. In the comparative, this month we're up about 2.5%. But when you drill down and compare March to March actual budget, we're down about 15% in our revenues. And the driver there is our activity-based revenues. The airport generates approximately $1 million in steady hard rent revenues, and the rest of it is primarily activity-based revenues. Our expenses, we're still tracking at about 9.7% down. We've maintained that steady trajectory throughout the fiscal year. We are drilling down to March, budget to actual. We're still ahead of our expenses by about 9%. So we're still carrying well-oiled practices forward. If not, we've increased those practices, as Alexis has mentioned. We've taken some cost-cutting measures forward. All in all, we're up ahead of where we should have been in our budget by about $2.6 million. However, that will be absorbed in April's and the remainder of the fiscal year activity. The next slide shows our forecasted fiscal year to date. Taking our current year activity and projecting out for the remainder of the fiscal year, we're looking at about a 16% decrease in our revenues forward for the end of fiscal year 2020. Our momentum that we had the first half of the year really helped soften that blow. Our expenses still appearing to be coming in under budget. We usually have about $2 million, give or take, in expenses monthly, and that seems to be roughly where we're going to land at the end of the fiscal year, ahead of the game by about a couple $1 million there before we finish out. The next slide is our days of liquid cash on hand, and we have about $18.32 million in liquid cash on hand, 229 days. Last month, we were up to about 18.9 with 237 days. We did have a significantly slower April, which absorbed some of that cash on hand. But I just want you to bear in mind, this does not include CARES Act funds. The board will be presented to vote for the acceptance of those funds later on in the meeting. And that money will be used to reimburse us from April expenses and going forward. We could elect to go back to January. However, we were pretty solid in January, February, and March. While it was a little lighter than we were comfortable with, we feel April is the month to begin to draw money to reimburse ourselves for some standard expenses, and then we'll make that money stretch out as far as possible. The next slide is our debt service cash position. We have about 2 more payments left. I see no issue in us being able to meet those 2 payments of about $2.7 million. And comparing our reserve for debt service, we have $18.1 million, and our fiscal 2020 debt is about $16.3. So we have about 1.8 excess. As you'll see as we go through the budget, the debt service for next year does go down by about $300,000. Are there any questions on this half of the presentation? Hey.
Does anyone have any questions for Fabio? Okay, continue, Fabio.
The budget, fiscal year 2021 budget, we built this budget to be based on where we're ending our fiscal year 20 finances. The pandemic has impacted our industry, the overall economy, and we've really taken a good look at our numbers. And as Alexis said, we've run several scenarios and several metrics to determine where we think we'll land at the end of this fiscal year, or throughout the fiscal year. we start the budget process in January, and we work our way through and to a final or product. By the end of March, early April, we start to pull things together and really drill down and make adjustments accordingly. We have 5 key metrics that we use for our airport TUL and RVS. And the first being our in-plane passengers, landed weights, CPE, revenue budget, and operating capital. The activity based on our information at hand, we project about a 25% decline in our in-plane passengers, and that will carry forward to our landed weights. Our CPE, cost per in-plane passenger, because of the reduction in plane passengers and projected airline revenues, we see a slight uptick in that cost as well. However, when compared to our benchmark airports, TUL is about mid of level of those airports. Our revenue budget, we forecasted a 22% decrease from prior year's budget, relatively close to where we're forecasting where we end fiscal year 22. And our operating capital purchases, these are large equipment purchases, vehicles, generators, things of that nature. We started out the fiscal year with a list that was mirrored the 2020 at about $3.3 million, and really have cut this down to bare bones purchases. And some of these purchases the board has already seen and voted to approve. We're just waiting for final delivery. We carried those values forward to ensure we had cash coverage for those. The RVS metrics and number of operations, we projected that down due to the uncertainty of flight school activities, corporate travel activities, as well as the instability in oil prices. We assume that there's going to be a significant impact on the operations at RVS. Fuel flows, again, down slightly based on trends and corporate behaviors. Our budget at RVS, we forecasted down about 24%, 25%, and that's really based upon the reduction in operations equaling the reduction in fuel flows and the instability in oil prices. We are forecasting for the potential of actually having a reduction in tenant bases and operations at RVS due to these combined pandemics and economic effects. Our operating budget at RVS, we've always kept it minimal for capital purchases. We've eliminated capital purchases for RVS. We will make do with equipment we have at TUL and work through it with that process. The next slide is our budget summary. And what this budget summary does is it really gives you a pretty good snapshot of what it takes to run the airport in a fiscal year, the total resources needed, where those resources are budgeted to be used. Typically, we need about $2 to $5 million to kickstart the fiscal year. And a lot of that is dependent upon the momentum you carry from the prior fiscal year into the new fiscal year. In 2020, we had some strong momentum from 2019. Thus, we needed less cash to kickstart the fiscal year. 2021, that's not the case. We'll need about $5.5 million to kickstart our fiscal year. Our PFC debt service, those are revenues needed to cover that portion of our debt service, as well as our total revenues forecasted at about a 9.2% decrease, primarily based on activities. Our operating budget, we've really tightened our belts and deferred a lot of maintenance. There's not many things you can cut out of the budget. You can simply defer, and that's where we're at in this fiscal year. We've managed to defer about 4%, just over $1 million worth of operating expenses. Our debt service, we're seeing a decrease of about 2.3%, $380,000. And some of that's attributed to just the natural payment down of the debt through the fiscal year, but also the $220,000 we saved with the refinancing of the 2020A bonds. We are market ready for the 2020B bonds. That number is not reflected in this projection because the market is not ready for us. Once we see some market stability We'll reevaluate the situation with our Hilltop Security Advisor, Mike Newman, and RBC Bank and determine whether or not we're ready to proceed and what those savings will be. Operating capital purchases, this is a combination of several items. It really has to do with what we're carrying forward as far as capital purchases. Typically, we carry about $3 million or a little more in projects that have not been completed in the prior fiscal year, as well as any future projects and capital purchases. We've really taken a look at our CIP, a capital improvement plan that was approved by the board and the FAA. We've only committed to performing capital projects for the new fiscal year that were FAA approved. They're approved but not yet funded, and that includes some runway work at RBS and some snow equipment at TUL. We're carrying about $2.5 million in carry forward projects to be completed in fiscal 21, as well as our $515,000 projects forward for the capital operating purchases. This does not include the CARES Act fund. That is a revenue supplement, not in addition to revenue, so that'll help kind of soften the blow of our reduced revenues. The next slide is just a really quick snapshot of comparatives of our budget from revenues to expenses from prior fiscal year. As you can see, we're down 22% in our revenue forecasted. Our personnel services, we kept those flat simply because of the unknowns that we have. We have our health insurance, which we were able to save a fair amount, renews in January of 2021. That cost is unknown, whether or not we're going to be at a savings or where we were before we switched providers, or if we'll be higher. That, as well as we do have 148 positions budgeted. Those positions, we have vacancies in those positions, the retiring positions, plus about 7 open positions. We've implemented a hiring freeze. However, we want to be prepared for when the activity uptick happens and we need to start staffing up, that we're not constrained to our budget. We do have plans to bring an amended budget to the board if needed. However, we want to have that flexibility to proceed. Our materials and supplies, that's a significant percentage, dollar-wise, just over $430,000. And that's really our miscellaneous supplies that we have to operate the airport, as well as our non-capital items, IT and non-capital purchases. We've deferred some of those non-capital purchases and upgrades for our equipment to another fiscal year, netting the savings. Our other services and charges, those are our janitorial services, our ARP services, our utilities. We do have a travel freeze at the airport currently, and we've significantly reduced future travel to the later half of the fiscal year. We've also made adjustments in how we operate the airport as far as utilities go as well, and we're projecting about a $580,000 savings there. Dropping down to the bottom line, 3.8 reduction from total expenses from prior year, netting about $7.5 million in net remaining revenue, and that'll be applied towards our debt service. The next budget is just a comparative of where we were pre-COVID-19, building our capital purchase budget, and where we are today. We started out with about $3.3 million worth of equipment purchases. COVID-19 hit in March, and we really ratcheted it down, keeping these purchases to essentials, some servers for our IT department, for the airport, storage units for our information, as well as crash phones and carry forward for a software upgrade that we're partway through. Our customer experience, we have about $47,000 there. That's for an MU tow chain for our outbound baggage system, and the operations of about $155,000. The board has previously approved that. That is for the airfield generator project that we're doing. The project is proceeding. However, the unit itself, the generator, is on a supply chain shortage. We are told we should expect to receive that final product sometime in the early part of the first quarter of FY21. The parking, landside parking of $170,000, those are the shuttle buses you voted on to approve back in July of 19. Supply chain issues have slowed the production of those two buses. We did receive them early on in the calendar year, about January, February. However, there were configuration issues. These are custom units. And then in the process of straightening out the configuration issues, there was a manufacturer's recall on transmission component, which further delayed the delivery of those units. We expect to receive those again in the early part of fiscal 21. And the final slide is our debt service requirement, our 3 buckets of cash that we have obligated for debt service, netting to about just over $16 million in budgeted debt service for FY21. Are there any questions on the budget?
Any questions for
Great
Fabio?
job, Fabio.
I'm sorry?
That was a great job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
No, I don't have a question. This is Joe. I mean, I don't know how you predict when air traffic comes back. What, just in general, what are you hearing? I mean, is everybody's crystal ball as murky as ours? Are you hearing anything? I mean, it's just completely up in the air, I assume.
Yeah, I was on a call with our CFO group for ACI earlier this week, and you know, there's a lot of predictions and a lot of different forecasts. You know, the later half of fiscal year 21, people are projecting an uptick. Others are carrying it out several years. It's really a guessing game. We've discussed internally. We'll see where these upticks that we've experienced and noticed, and the industry's noticed in May. See how far they go into the summer months, and that'll give us a better understanding of duration. It's really, you know, you're looking at a lot of data, and the data keeps changing pretty much weekly, if not daily.
Yeah, that I think you've done a marvelous job with what you have to work with. So
Thank you.
Mary Smith Klaus. Thanks, Jeff. I forgot to ask you guys yesterday, is the Hilton and Fine Parking, are they still working?
Yeah, so the Clarion is closed, but they're referring all of those guests over to the Hilton. And Fine Airport Parking is still running. However, I mean, just because of demand, they don't need to make as many runs as they used to. We heard from them yesterday, as a matter of fact, and they're starting to see more activity, which, you know, I think we're all pretty excited that we actually are seeing people again. I don't know that more activity necessarily means it's cumulatively a lot of activity, but any activity at this point is positive.
Good deal. If there's no other questions, I'd like to get a motion and a vote to receive the draft of the 2020-2021 budget.
this is Joe Robson. I would make that motion.
Do I have a second?
This is Mary Smith Klaus. Second.
Roll call, please, Jeff.
Sid Harrell,
Aye.
Mary Smith Croft,
Aye.
Joe Robson,
Aye.
Mayor Bynum?
Aye.
Mayor Bynum votes aye. Motion passes to receive the report.
Perfect. 2C and maybe 2D together, Fabio?
Yes, I'll take those both together. Accept and approve pending FAA CARES Act grant agreement in the amount not to exceed $15,547,550 for TUL. And 2D, accept and approve pending FAA CARES Act grant agreement in the amount not to exceed $157,000 for RVS. The airport may use these funds for any purpose for which the airport revenues may be used lawfully. CARES Act grant recipients are required to follow FAA policy and procedures concerning the use of airport revenues, revenue use policy. Management recommends approval.
Do we have any discussion or questions for Fabio?
No, this is Joe Robson. I would approve, make a motion to approve 2C and 2D.
Do we have a second?
Mary Smith Crofts, second.
Jeff, please call the roll.
Ken Harrell?
Aye.
Ken Harrell votes aye. Mary Smith Croft?
Aye.
Mary Smith Croft votes aye. Joe Robson?
Aye.
Joe Robson votes aye. Mayor Bynum?
Aye.
Mayor Bynum votes aye. 2C and 2D pass.
Very good. 2E, Alexis.
So 2E is to approve a subscription agreement with Paylocity Corporation for their payroll services for 1 year in an amount not to exceed $23,826. 4 bids were received. Paylocity was chosen by the selection committee because of their full bundle experience. It's not only going to save the airport $10,000 a year, they're going to provide additional services that our employees will be able to access through their website and app.
Very good. Any questions for Alexis? Comments? Discussion? Seeing none, we have a motion to approve.
This is Joe Robson. I would make a motion to approve 2E.
Second.
Mary Smith Croft, second.
Roll call, please, Jeff.
Ken Harrell?
Aye.
Harrell votes aye. Mary Smith Croft?
Aye.
Mary Smith Croft votes aye. Joe Robson?
Aye.
Joe Robson votes aye. Mayor Bynum?
Aye.
Mayor Bynum votes aye. 2E passes.
Very good. 2F, Alexis.
So 2F is to approve a construction reimbursable agreement with TAIT and the FAA. This is to relocate the glide slope for the West Runway project in the amount of $334,504.07. This will be a grant-funded project with the FAA, so we will be reimbursed for 90% of the cost of this expense.
Any questions for Alexis?
Alexis, is this is Kent Harrell. Is this caused by a shortening of the runway?
Yes, not necessarily the displaced threshold,
Right.
yeah, which is going to shorten the runway.
That affects about this.
Any other comments, questions, or discussion? Seeing none, do I have a motion to pass 2F?
Mary Smith Crofts, motion to approve 2F.
Second.
Kent Harrell seconds.
Roll call, please, Jeff.
Ken Harrell?
Aye.
Ken Harrell votes aye. Mary Smith Croft?
Aye.
Joe Robson?
Aye.
Joe Robson and Mary Smith Croft votes aye. Mayor Bynum?
Aye.
Mayor Bynum votes aye. 2F pass.
Terrific. Thank you. 2G, Alexis.
So on 2G, we are wanting to update our human resources policy manual, specifically regarding our policy regarding pay in lieu of vacation usage. We want to eliminate that particular provision. And then the donated leave program, we're modifying it, requiring employees who participate in the donated leave program every year. We'll give our employees the opportunity to opt into that program. They'll have to donate 16 hours of time in order to be eligible to pull time out of that bank in the future if they need it.
Any questions, comments, or discussion with Alexis for this item? May I have a motion to approve?
Mary Smith Crofts, motion to approve 2G.
A second?
Joe Robson, second.
Jeff, please call the roll.
Kent Harrell.
Aye.
Harrell votes aye. Mary Smith Crofts.
Aye.
Mary Smith Crofts votes aye. Joe Robson.
Aye.
Joe Robson votes aye. Mayor Bynum.
Aye.
Mayor Bynum votes aye. Motion passes.
Perfect. 2H, Alexis.
So 2H is to award an agreement with Adams Asphalt Maintenance. This is for the repair work to the economy parking lot. They're going to basically clean, patch, seal, and restripe all of the parking spaces for a portion of our lot. And an amount not to exceed $40,750.87.
Okay, any questions, comments, or discussion with Alexis on this item? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
This is Joe Robson. I would approve or make a motion to approve 2H.
Do we have a second?
Mary Smith Crofts, second.
Jeff, please call the roll.
Kent Harrell. Kent Harrell.
It didn't catch through. Aye.
Kent Harrell votes aye. Mary Smith Crofts.
Aye.
Mary Smith Crofts votes aye. Joe Robson.
Aye.
Joe Robson votes aye. Mayor Bynum.
Aye.
Mayor Bynum votes aye. Motion passed.
Very good. 3D1, Alexis.
So 3D1 is to approve change order number 5 with Manhattan Construction Company in the amount of negative $581.40. This is for the Schwab Hall project, and this for a combination of different things that they have removed from the project and added, but combined savings.
Gotcha. Any questions, comments, or discussion on this item with Alexis? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
This is Joe Robson. I would make a motion to approve 3D1.
A second?
Mary Smith Crofts, second.
Jeff, please call the roll.
Kent Harrell.
Aye.
Kent Harrell votes aye. Mary Smith Crofts.
Aye.
Mary Smith Crofts votes aye. Joe Robson.
Aye.
Joe Robson votes aye. Mayor Bynum.
Aye.
Thank you. Mayor Bynum votes aye. Motion passed.
Perfect. 3D2, Alexis.
Okay, so 3D2, we have changed some of the numbers, and I'm going to go through them. Jeff, of course, will make sure that they're noted properly in the minutes. But 3D2 is to approve change order number 1 with Keith Construction in the amount of negative $21,152.90. This change adds safety barricades in the place of fencing. It also deletes concrete deck repair and retrofitting roof drains, neither of which were necessary to complete the work of the project. The total change orders will be negative $21,152.90, which is minus 1.6%. There are no change of quantity, 0, and the total project cost is the same number that's reflected on the agenda.
Very good. Are there any questions, comments, or discussion for Alexis on this item? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
This is Joe Robson. I would make a motion to approve item 3D2.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Mary Smith Crofts, second.
Jeff, please call the roll.
Kent Harrell.
Aye.
Kent Harrell votes aye. Mary Smith Crofts.
Aye.
Mary Smith Crofts votes aye. Joe Robson.
Aye.
Joe Robson votes aye. Mayor Bynum.
Aye.
Mayor Bynum votes aye. Motion passes.
Okay, now 3D3, Alexis.
Approve change order number 1 with Ellsworth Construction in the amount of negative $206,795. This change deletes items for the Riverside pavement rehab project that are no longer needed.
Okay, any questions, comments, or discussion on 3D3?
Alexis, which project was this?
This was the rehab project where they basically pulled out the old pavement, the top layer, replaced it, repainted the west runway at Riverside. Or east runway, I'm sorry. I'm getting my directions confused. It's the east runway, the small one.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
Is there any more comments, discussion, or questions for Alexis on this item? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
Is there a second?
Mary Smith Crofts. Second.
Jeff, please call the roll.
Kent Harrell.
Aye.
Kent Harrell votes aye. Mary Smith Crofts.
Aye.
Mary Smith Crofts votes aye. Joe Robson.
Aye.
Joe Robson votes aye. Mayor Bynum.
Aye.
Mayor Bynum votes aye. Motion 3D3 passes.
Very good, thank you. 3E1, Alexis.
3.1 is to approve change of quantities number 2 with Manhattan Construction Company in the amount of negative $14,817.30. This is just to reconcile planned quantities with those used in construction.
Very good. Are there any questions, comments, or discussion on this item? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
This is Joe Robson. I would make a motion to approve 3E1.
Do we have a second?
Mary Smith Crofts. Second.
Jeff, please call the roll.
Kent Harrell.
Aye.
Kent Harrell votes aye. Mary Smith Crofts.
Aye.
Mary Smith Crofts votes aye. Joe Robson.
Aye.
Joe Robson votes aye. Mayor Bynum.
Aye.
Mayor Bynum votes aye. 3E1 is passed.
Very good. 3E2, Alexis.
I would like to withdraw 3E2.
Very well. 3E3.
So 3E3 is to approve a change of quantities. Number 1 with Ellsworth Construction in the amount of $227,626. Again, we're just reconciling planned quantities with those used in construction for the Riverside pavement rehab project.
Are there any questions, comments, or discussion on this item for Alexis? So just to make, Chair has a question. So now that we have a 9.4% total change on this project, is that the way I read that?
A 9.4% change in quantities. But the total cost of the project is still less than 1% over.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just didn't know if I was reading that right. Okay. Is there any discussion, comment, or questions for Alexis? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Move approve 3E3.
This is Joe Robson. I would second that.
Jeff, please call the roll.
Kent Harrell.
Aye.
Kent Harrell votes aye. Mary Smith Crofts.
Aye.
Mary Smith Crofts votes aye. Joe Robson.
Aye.
Joe Robson votes aye. Mayor Bynum.
Aye.
Mayor Bynum votes aye. 3E3 passes.
Okay, very good. 3F1, Alexis.
I'd like to withdraw 3F1.
Withdrawn. 3F2.
So 3F2 is to accept project and approve final payment with Keith Construction in the amount of $120,498.34. This is for the Schwab Hall roof and bag claim roof replacement project. The total project cost was $1.276 million, which is 1.6% under budget. I do want to note the modifications we made before in 3D2 regarding the change order percentages and amounts will be reflected in the agenda item. So there were $21,152.90 in total change orders, which is negative 1.6, and the change of quantities was 0. But other than that, they did a great job. Keith Construction has done several projects for us and always does a great job in keeping within the budget and working within our security constraints.
Very good. Any questions, comments, or discussion on 3F2? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
This is Joe Robson. I would make a motion to approve 3F2.
Do we have a second?
Mary Smith Croft, second.
Jeff, please call the roll.
Kent Harrell,
Aye.
Kent Harrell votes aye. Mary Smith Croft,
Aye.
Mary Smith Croft votes aye. Joe Robson,
Aye.
Joe Robson votes aye. Mayor Bynum,
Aye.
Mayor Bynum votes aye. Motion 3F2 is passed.
Very good. Contracts, leases, and licenses. 4A, can we take all three, Alexis?
That's a Jeff Shaw question.
Yes.
Okay. So 4A is to approve amendment number 1 to the sublease agreement with Destinations EFC to revise its license from a fixed base operator to flight training and flight club effective April 1st, 2020. 4B is to approve an assignment of a sublease and acknowledgement and consent to assignment from Oscar and Brett Taylor to Ross Thomas Wright III and Susan B. Wright, effective upon approval. And 4C is to approve an assignment of sublease and acknowledgement and consent of assignment from Carl Snow to Mark Schwartz, effective upon closing, but no later than, and this is a change, no later than June 12th, 2020.
Very good. Jeff, I guess you'll make sure that's noted in the minutes.
Absolutely.
Do we have a motion? Do we have any discussion, questions?
I've
or
got,
dis-
Jeff, I have one question. This is Kent Harrell. Alexis, what is the effect of 4A?
So this was so the way I understand it, Destinations EFC took over a sublease from a prior operator. That
Right.
prior operator was licensed as an FBO. And they received that full right and power to be an FBO during that transition. They have elected not to do that. And as we were going through our files, looking at various things, we're doing a file audit right now for all of our contracts and agreements. This item came up, and so we just wanted to clean up the file to make sure it accurately reflected what's actually taking place.
Okay.
Any other questions, discussions, or comments for 4A, B, and C? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion for all three.
Move approval for A, B, 4A, C, and A, B, and C.
Very good. Do we have a second?
Mary Smith Croft, second.
Jeff, please call the roll.
Kent Harrell,
Aye.
Mary Smith, Kent Harrell votes aye. Mary Smith Croft,
Aye.
Mary Smith Croft votes aye. Joe Robson,
Aye.
Joe Robson votes aye. Mayor Bynum,
Aye. And Mr. Chairman, I'm going to have to leave the meeting at this point.
Very good. Thank you, Mayor.
noted.
Thank you.
Okay.
4A, B, and C pass.
Very good. We have item number 5, which is any other TAIT business. Seeing no business. Any TAA business? Seeing no other TAA business. Do I have a motion for adjournment?
Mary Smith Croft's motion to adjourn.
Do we have a second?
This is Joe Robson. I would second that.
Jeff, please call the roll.
Adjourn. Kent Harrell votes
Aye.
aye. Mary Smith Croft,
Aye.
Mary Smith Cross votes aye to adjourn. Joe Robson.
Aye.
Joe Robson votes aye to adjourn. The ayes have it. The motion.
Very good. Okay, we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.
Thanks a
Thank
lot.
You too. Thanks.
Thank you, Jeff.